Thank you, Andrea. Good job. Good job. Listen, thank you for bringing me in. And Dr. Edwards, looks like we're running the anchor leg tonight, my brother. So let's bring it on home for the people.
All right.
I can't say with enough gratitude the time spent in this conference, everyone. Last year, when Omari connected with us, we were all in, and IBM jumped in immediately to become one of the first title sponsors last year. And, forgive me, let me introduce myself. I am a design director at IBM. I run one of our partner ecosystems. And so I am the director of partner ecosystem design for the company. Fancy words to say we help the company sell stuff, and we create interfaces, digital interfaces for that. And I run a design team for those efforts. And I also have the distinct pleasure of being the global initiative chair of racial equity and design at IBM, where we're taking an introspective and hopefully thoughtful and even more hopefully sustainable look at the equitable practices at IBM with regards to the profession of design, and hopefully, and we are inspiring the company itself and the industry overall. And so as I think about this year in 2022, I think about how 21 and 22 we were able to bridge this interesting gap at the company. I want to share with you why this conference is so important. We were able to have, and we still have published interview preparation materials, portfolio prep materials. Hopefully my colleague Jessica can drop a link or two to our racialequityanddesign.com website, where all of that is still available for students, for existing practitioners. We think we got to give away the game. There's no need to keep it behind sort of an ivory tower. Let's just teach the people what it might look like to present a fantastic portfolio for a hiring manager. And so we prepped with a couple of sessions like that last year, and we participated in the job fair last year as well. And as a result of that kicking off our April and all the rest of the work on racial equity and design at IBM, we had the biggest hiring year ever in history at IBM of Black designers in one calendar year, all to the power of this conversation. In fact, we heard from some of our colleagues and new hires yesterday in the panel conversation led by Alicia. So much respect and much deference to them for taking on this journey with us. So listen, please join us on our website. We're linking out, I think, to the podcast now. I also host a podcast called It's About Time. We're also constantly publishing and thinking about these issues. And yes, we're hiring this year as well. So please take a look when you have a chance. Now, all of that is really just a precursor, because who I'm about to introduce is really what I want to talk about, and who's been on my mind all day today as I prepared these thoughts to share with you. Dr. D'Wayne Edwards. He's the founder and head of the Pensole Lewis College of Business and Design. And what you might not know about him, besides that, he was on the panel earlier and he talked a little bit about his background, but let me bring some more spotlight to that. At 17 years old, he won the Reebok design competition. I don't know what you were doing at 17, but I couldn't necessarily find my way out of my neighborhood, much less beat professionals in the profession I would end up joining into. At 19, he became the youngest professional footwear designer in the entire industry. And don't you know, this brother here, Dr. Edwards, is one of only 6 designers to ever design Air Jordans for the Jordan and Nike brand. So let's fast forward. After 33 years in the industry, he's still going strong. He's now surfaced and delivering to you and I a new provocation. How does one reinvent the very design education industry, and then let's do it at an HBCU? And I'm going to let him get into the secret sauce and break down the special herbs and spices that are going into his formula at the Pensole School. But let me just tease the idea by saying that he's being disruptive. He's taking in and really honestly exploiting the business model that corporations have been using for decades and turning those ideas back on the design industry to achieve equity. And so brands like ASICS, Adidas, New Balance, Nike are already on board with the Pensole School of Design. He's been covered recently, just this quarter, by Forbes, Essence, Vibe, Yahoo, Business Insider, Black Enterprise, and more. So we heard from Saul Williams yesterday as he opened our proceedings in this conference to hack our reality, HACK, to hack everything around us. Dr. Edwards is hacking the talent pipeline. Where else could we go to easily disrupt this myth that we can't find good Black designers? And if they would just show up in the white hiring managers pipeline, we would hire them. We know that that's not the only problem. That's only really, it's really a red herring if you ask me. And I'd love to hear Dr. Edwards talk through that here in a few minutes. We also heard from Dr. Jelani Cobb yesterday, and he talked about the avenues of access have been narrowed intentionally, especially in America. And I'm here to tell you that D'Wayne has found some intentions to turn that around and widen those avenues of access. So listen, this brother is not just the next chapter for, I think, and hopefully IBM, but for many of us who are fighting for equity in this profession that we love so much called design. And how more innovative could you be? He's got 50 design patents, y'all. He's traveled and spoke in 50 countries. He's truly could have been anywhere in the world, but he's decided to be here with us tonight. So I'm going to step aside. It is my honor, my privilege to bring to the stage Dr. D'Wayne Edwards. D'Wayne, take it away, my man.
Man, that was a hell of an introduction, man. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give put together a deck, and I'll show kind of the beginning, so people have an understanding of the journey of where I've come from and where I'm going. Can you see that, Nigel?
We can, yeah. We see looks like a PDF.
Yep. So I'll go through this, and hopefully we have time for some questions afterwards, or I'll stay as long as needed. I know we're short on time, but I'll power through as fast as I can, because I think the backstory is just important as the current story. And so, I am really all of these things. I'm a dreamer, I'm a designer, I am an educator, and I'm an activist. And I'm all of those things from the very beginning into my world today. But I started in probably one of the roughest cities in Illinois, called Joliet, Illinois, known for Stateville Prison and the Blues Brothers. Not much known there. I'm the youngest of 6, raised by a single parent. My mom packed us up and moved us to Inglewood, California, thinking, Inglewood's got to be better than Joliet. It was actually worse, if not the same. But I am raised there, and it's molded me to who I am to this day. My journey as an artist started here. For young folks on this call, at one point in time, there was a book that came to your house every week that told you what was on TV. I know that's kind of hard to believe, but true. And within a few pages was this ad. There was always this ad here where, as a young kid, I'm seeing this and I'm like, well, all I see is $5,000. I don't even see the other 2 words to the right of in prizes. And so I'm drawing and I'm entering, and I, cut it out and mail it off. And one day, my mom screams, is like, boy, what's wrong with you? Somebody's calling here asking about you. And I'm like, what happened? And ended up being, I won the competition. I was offered a scholarship to this art school in Minnesota. The problem was I was only 12. And so to me, though, that was my first entrance into this idea of what art is and competitions and what it's like to compete. So I continued to thrive and draw sneakers and draw anything I could see. Got into high school, played ball at Inglewood. Then I started really customizing sneakers in like 85, 86. And our uniforms, as you see to the left, were green and white. Sneakers didn't come in green and white, so I would customize them. I would get my shoe dye and duct tape and X-Acto blades and customize my kicks so I could be completely different than everyone else. And then I'm like, well, let me do this for a career. So I go to my guidance counselor and say, I figured out what I want to do with my life after I graduate from high school is I want to be a footwear designer. And so this is what she told me. She said no Black kid from Inglewood would ever become a footwear designer. Now, as a counselor, that's horrible advice to give, but I understood what she was trying to say. She was trying to tell me get out of the city alive, but it became an opportunity for me to prove people wrong. And she was just one of many people I proved wrong. The problem, though, growing up in Inglewood, with being the youngest of 6, there was no money for me to go to college. So ultimately, I'm like, whatever, like, forget about college. I'll see what happens. I'll get me a job. Started working at McDonald's one day, got the LA Times, and looked in the LA Times, and there was this Reebok design competition, as Nigel talked about. Ended up winning it. it was the happiest day, the saddest day, and the most pissed off day I've ever had in my life, because I legitimately won. The problem was I was 17. And they were like, well, come back and see us when you finish college. And I'm like, man, I don't have any money to go to college. And so I was just done, and ultimately just forgot about design, gave up everything, and just figured I'll continue working at McDonald's and exist in life. And one day my mom came back home and she gave me this card. There's a 25-cent card at the time. Probably the most valuable object I own to this day. I still have this card with me to this day, and I carry it with me. And I actually give it to my students as well. But this really helped shape and redirect me a bit, because what I realized was I was putting too much faith and confidence in other people. I need to direct all that energy into myself. And so I started redirecting all of that energy, and I really started to believe that, I was going to be unstoppable and undeniable. And when opportunities came my way, I would take full advantage of them and try to make the best of them. Graduated from Inglewood High School, got a job at this accounting agency, filing papers. And my second job was as an accounts payable file clerk at this footwear company called LA Gear. And I'm like, I'm in heaven now. So I'm like, man, I'm in a footwear company now, but the problem is I'm in the finance department and I'm a temp. I'm not even a full-time employee. And so one day, about 2 months into my assignment, the company put these wooden suggestion boxes in every department and ways to make the company better. Now, keep in mind, this is the late 80s. So there's no digital anything, right? And so what I would do is every morning before I went to my file clerk job, I would sketch a shoe, a LA Gear shoe that I thought they should do and stick it in this suggestion box. I did that for 6 months. And one day I got a call over the intercom system from the owner of the company. His name is Robert Greenberg. And he called me into his office and said, I heard you're the kid that's been doing this. And I'm like, man, I'm sorry. I thought he was going to personally fire me on the spot. But he was like, no, he said, I admire your ambition. I admire your drive. And I want to give you a job if you're interested. And I'm like, yeah, I'm interested. So as Nigel said, I became a professional footwear designer 7 months after graduating from Inglewood High School in 1989. And from there, I started designing shoes for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Karl Malone, Shaq when he was in college. And all I can remember is her. All I kept thinking about was Miss Wilson Jefferson and her quote. I'm a super competitive guy where if you tell me I'm not going to do something, you just started something. And, and so what she did was she motivated me to just try. And that try led to all of these opportunities. After LA Gear, I left, Robert left. And then there was this Brooklyn-born designer by the name of Carl Keynote came out west and started making jeans out in downtown LA. And so I started designing the footwear for Carl. While he was making the apparel, I was making the footwear. So he designed clothes for Biggie. Biggie wore the boots that I designed. Tupac wore the sneakers that I designed. Dre was wearing sneakers. Even Puffy was wearing sneakers, and then even Nas. So this is all in like the early 90s before, all these superstars really blew up and became who they are, as you know, today. RIP to both Biggie and Pac, but we didn't know what we were doing at that time. We were just trying to make great stuff. And these guys supported the brand at no cost. So back then it was really love as it pertains to Black businesses and Black designers, because they were just happy that one of us was doing great things. After Kenai, I got a job up here in Jordan. I'm in Oregon right now. So Jordan was a dream come true. Ended up being in Jordan. I became the design director for the Jordan brand, designed all of Melo's product for his first 9 years in the league, Derek Jeter for several years in the league, Roy Jones Jr., Ray Allen, a host of other athletes, but obviously the pinnacle is MJ. Learning what my ambitions are and my competitiveness dwarfed what this man's competitiveness was. And so I really started to learn how he thinks and what his system of kind of competitiveness and beliefs are around just being great. And that was probably the biggest thing that took from me from a design point of view, working in the Jordan brand, was really understanding his mental and his aspirations. While all of this is happening, sneaker culture is starting to bubble up. It's starting to get, much more of a culture, and people are starting to put up websites and everything. And then you would still hear about these kind of stories. This was an article that Sports Illustrated did many years ago but you would still see it happening where young Black men and women were valuing sneakers over other people's lives. They were valuing sneakers over paying bills and doing these other things, standing in line and camping out. And I'm just like, man, there's got to be a better way. I mean, there's no way that I was sent here to contribute to this, because they were killing over sneakers that I was designing. And I struggled with that because I felt I was a part of that problem. And so what I wanted to do was do something about it. And so I decided to retire. And I retired with this goal in mind, is I wanted to leave my industry better than when I entered it. And I figured the best way for me to do that is try to create my own school. Actually create the one I wish I was able to attend as a high school kid, free, everything that I wanted. I tried to make that happen from a collegiate point of view. So I created Pensole. The Academy launched in 2010. And when I started to launch it as a kid who never went to college, I needed to learn what education was and how these schools became the best design schools. And so I started teaching at the best design schools in the nation. So Art Centers in Pasadena, California is one of the best product design schools in the nation. Parsons is one of the top fashion design schools in New York. And then MIT is one of the top engineering schools, in Massachusetts. So I'm there as a student and a teacher, because I'm just trying to learn and understand, what education was and what made these schools so good at what they did. And so I can craft my own syllabus, craft my own philosophy around education. And then that's what I started to do. And so ultimately the Academy became a professional development academy. Now we just use sneakers as the hook and the anchor to get kids involved and interested. But fundamentally, we are really trying to teach these kids how to behave a certain way, conduct themselves a certain way, but also understand what it's like to actually learn through the actual product creation process as a professional. In addition to the sneaker part, we'll teach kids how to make shoes from pieces of paper and tape. We do functional apparel and accessories design. We do color and material design. We also, hand make everything that we create. And then we obviously do the digital side as well. All of our instructors are, either former students or 2, 3, 4 years of decades of experience. So our kids are learning from, the best in the industry. And then it's supported by some of the top brands in the industry that support us and support our programs. Now, when I say support us and support our programs, what I mean by that is all of our programs are free. So students who attend any of our programs do not have to pay. They just have to earn their way in. The corporations cover all tuition and housing, as well as at the end of all of our programs that we do, is there's some form of an internship or job associated with that class that we're conducting for these very specific brands. To me, that is what school should be. It should be you learn the way you will work. When you work hard, you get rewarded. And so for the last 12 years, we've taught it should be closer to 2,500 students. Our kids came from all over the globe. They would come to downtown Portland. A lot of times it's their first time in the United States. And then to date, we've placed well over 700 kids into jobs in our industry. In 2019, I really felt there was a disconnection moment between us and Black folks in design, specifically in footwear. And when I started in the industry in '89, I was only the second Black footwear designer in the whole industry. And over that time, mentoring kids, teaching kids, and just helping people get into the industry, I really wanted us to all be in the same room. And so with a partner of ours called FDRA in DC, we created the African American Footwear Forum in DC in 2019. And we just called people and said, hey, come hang out with us for a couple of days so you can kind of experience what it's like to be amongst all the other people who you've only seen online or you've read in articles. It was an amazing day of fellowship, mentorship. We had a unified front of folks doing this one conversation around just empowerment and what it's like to be in the room for the first time where we were not outnumbered. That was something we've never experienced before, and this actually happened. And we ended up doing it again in Portland later that year, and then 2020 happened. George Floyd gets murdered. The whole world starts to change. It starts to change for Black people as well. Billions of dollars are being committed to Black communities by, not only footwear companies, but all types of sectors within, sports products, consumer products, entertainment. And then design started to become important. The diversity of design started to be important. And that was a really interesting shift because that's never happened before. And that was a really interesting shift because it was during a time where everyone was captive in their home and they could not ignore what was going on because it was right on TV. And then in late 20, I was introduced to a school that I didn't even know existed. It's called Lewis College of Business in Detroit, Michigan. And I was even more kind of disappointed and ashamed, quite honestly. I didn't know about this woman. And specifically, her name is Dr. Violet T. Lewis. And she founded the Lewis College of Business in Indianapolis. She founded in 1928 with the goal of providing Black women an opportunity to learn the skills that they need to work in offices, because Black women were not allowed to work in corporate offices in the 20s. She did so well in Indianapolis, she opened a second location to Detroit in 1939. And then ultimately that school also flourished to the point where the first Black office employees at GM, Ford, Michigan Bell, several other large corporations in Michigan, they were all graduates of her college. And she was a small, college in Detroit. In 1987, the government recognized her as a historically Black college for all the efforts and she's been doing since 1928. And that made her one of 3 Black women ever to found an HBCU. In the 140, 50 plus year history of historically Black colleges, only 3 women have founded schools. One is Violet Lewis, the other is Bethune-Cookman, and the other one is Voorhees College. And ultimately, due to HBCUs being historically poorly funded pretty much from all of its existence, and it ultimately closed in 2013, which was a huge blow to the city of Detroit. And I caught wind of it. I spoke to the family. They had tried to bring the school back for several years. They were unsuccessful. I spoke to the family and talked to them about what I would love to do with them and hopefully bring the college back. And so they agreed. And so in October of 21, we had a press conference and we announced that we were bringing the college back. The lady in the center is Violet T. Lewis's granddaughter. Her name is Violet Ponders, Dr. Violet Ponders. And we brought the college back in partnership with the College for Creative Studies, which is one of the top design schools in the country. The Gilbert Family Foundation, huge supporter of anything Detroit, in the city of Detroit, and the Target Corporation. In our earlier panel I was on, the young lady spoke about Target and their emphasis on HBCUs and design. It is true. I was having a general conversation with Target about some things, and they asked what I was up to. And at this time, it wasn't public knowledge of what I was trying to do. And so when I told them, they were like, how can we be involved and how can they support? And so through the support of CCS, the Gilbert Family Foundation, and Target, we're bringing the college back. We're looking to do a few things. We're looking to be the first HBCU ever to reopen. Several have closed, unfortunately, over the decades, and none have ever really reopened. We'll be one of the first HBCUs to focus on design, so have a true emphasis on design and business. And then we're going to open officially on May 2nd of this year. And our programs that we have lined up and sponsors we have lined up for this year are amazing partners that have been with us for decades now, but even some new ones. And as you see, we're going to be teaching kids design from a spectrum of hardcore workwear, which is an authentic Detroit brand of Carhartt, all the way to the athletic product that you see from Nike, all the way to the amazing luxury product you see from Jimmy Choo and Versace. And then we have a host of other unbelievable partners in the outdoor space, and then just general sneaker space. And then we're bringing in apparel brands and furniture companies, and obviously Procter & Gamble on the packaging and the accessory side. So what we're looking to do is really offer our students a breadth of careers in design. And again, all of these programs are aligned with internship opportunities and hopefully future employment opportunities as well. I try to get through as fast as I could. So, I go by this quote, dreams are free, and all we need to do is dream bigger. And every time I've put myself under that microscope, like crazy things start to happen that I didn't imagine. And so I wanted to breeze through it really quick and open it up for any questions. If anyone had anything, hopefully that wasn't too fast for me to breeze through, but I did want to give some folks some background before any questions may have pop up.
D'Wayne, thank you so much for that. That's a great presentation. I've been keeping track of the chat here, and definitely a lot of folks are inspired, as am I. And so please, I haven't seen any questions come through. I have some questions, so I'll start with mine. But while I ask mine, if you all could put your questions in, that'd be great. So I'm really curious, when you were 19 and you were at LA Gear and you went from putting in the, your little card with the sketches in, and then they said, okay, let's have you come on to be a designer. What was that transition like, and what kind of support did you need to, because presumably coming out of high school, you weren't trained to be formally trained to be a shoe designer, or how LA Gear did their stuff. So who was someone kind of looking out for you, mentoring you? How did that happen?
So I put Robert Greenberg in there because he was the first white man I actually had a conversation with. Like I said, I grew up in Inglewood, so we didn't see too many white folks in the city. And he was the one that really kind of took a chance on a kid from Inglewood. He's never even been to the city before. And LA Gear was in Marina Del Rey, which is only about 10 minutes away. But it was tough in the beginning because I was the only Black person at the company next to, I think there was a janitor. His name was James Johnson. So James and I spoke often, but it was me and James, but I'm the young kid. And so the other designers that were there, I'm sure they never said this to me, but they kind of looked at me like as a charity case because Robert gave me this chance, right? And so what I did was, instead of kind of running away from that, I ran up to them. I'm like, hey, you got all the information I need. Let me get it. And so every day, all I did was ask questions, watch what they did. And my skills increased just by paying attention, asking questions, because I was hungrier than they were. I'm not even supposed to be there. So for me, that's the way I always look at it. Like, I'm not even supposed to be there. So I'm gonna try to make the most of the opportunity as best as I can. And so it was really learning by doing. And it was really running up and asking folks like, hey, how do I do this? How do you do that? Because I knew being Black and young was an advantage. It wasn't a disadvantage. It was an advantage because they were trying to sell me. And so here I am designing the product that they're trying to sell for a consumer that looks like me.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that. So we have some questions here. It sounds generally like, how can folks support what you're doing with the school? And for those of us who are local, are you going to have like an official school opening? Or how can we support and get involved if you want?
Yeah, you're local. You in Detroit?
Well, I'm in the Ann Arbor area myself, and then we have some other folks here from Detroit. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Good. Yeah, we will have the official opening will be on May 2nd. We'll start planning kind of a opening kind of ceremony the weekend before. But then at the same time, we're going to have our doors open so people can always walk in and see what we're doing. Our goal is to really, immerse ourselves into the Detroit community and make sure that we demystify what it takes to get into the design industry, because it's always hidden, especially as it pertains to product design. You don't always see how it works behind the scenes. And what we're able to do is show you in real time how it works. And we'll film a lot of our programs that we do so we can release videos so kids can actually see, like, this is what product design looks like. And if you ever thought about where your favorite sneaker comes from, this is how it comes to life. Okay,
great. Thank you. So we have a question here. Can you talk a bit about the importance of diversity in learning frameworks? So for example, traditional, hands-on, somewhere in the middle. How important is this for design and even other industries?
So I'm old school, where like I think the most valuable tool or the most valuable computer you have is your brain. And kids always ask all the time, like, give me the software that's needed to do this and do that. I said, first, you need to activate your brain. What can you do without a computer first? And then that forces you to work harder. So we do everything by hand first. Our kids have to earn a computer. So they're drawing by hand, they're cutting by hand, they're doing everything by hand. Especially in these day and age, is the hand skills are eroding because of the digital tools. The digital tools are amazing, but they should not define who you are. Who you are as a designer should come from you and your energy and what you can do with your hands. The digital side of it enhances your skills that you already have. And so that's how we've always taught, and we will always continue to teach that way. Also on the diversity side, diversity, of course we know is important, right? And we're just trying to help other people understand it, which they do, where, I always talk to organizations, is like, hey, if you put 10 people in the room that all look the same versus 10 people from diverse backgrounds, gave them the same project, you're going to see new results in the one that has a diverse background, or that diverse room, versus the one that has all the same characteristics and same background. And so diversity to me equals innovation. Without diversity, there is no innovation. There is no progress. There is nothing new.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Now we have another question here. What keeps you motivated? So life has its ups and downs, and it's easy to get sidetracked. Besides proving your guidance counselor wrong, what is your secret to staying energized and motivated?
I don't know if it's a secret. I think for me, I have the same mindset that I've had since I was a teenager. Like, I don't think I'm supposed to be here. Like, statistically, if you grow up in Inglewood, where I'm from, 18 is a win, 21 is amazing, right? If you're not in jail, dead or in jail. And so for me, like, I'm living the careers my two brothers who passed away, who are also born with the gift to draw, never got a chance to have a career. I'm living their career that they never had a chance to have. And so I'm never really thinking about myself and my legacy. I'm thinking about my brothers. I have daughters. One of them wants to be a designer as well, and she's well on her way. So for me, it's not about me. It's always about how can I serve other people. I'm happy. I'm happy. I love what I do. My lights are on. I have food in my refrigerator. I'm straight. So I don't think that there's a secret necessarily for me, but I would say I'm just always fortunate for every day I'm able to see, and I stay hungry.
Okay. Now it's interesting. Someone had a question about how you and Pensole ended up in Portland, and I have a question about how you sort of decided to come out to Detroit. And I'm wondering, to what extent are you trying to be flexible, looking for where the opportunities are, where you are geographically, or how that has played a...
No, I moved from Inglewood to Portland because Nike's up here. I didn't know anything about Oregon. Come on, I'm one state below in California. Only thing I thought about Oregon was like cows and trees, which is not too far off, but I didn't know anything about Oregon. So I came up here because this was where my opportunity was to work at Nike, and Jordan was here. I'm moving to Detroit because that is where Lewis College of Business is. And so I'm going where I'm supposed to be to continue on the journey that I'm trying to continue forward with.
Okay. So it sounds like there is some flexibility for the dream is bigger than where you need to be geographically, because sometimes people are very tied to where they are geographically. Right?
Oh, I think that's actually one of the things that holds us back as Black people, is that we're comfortable where we are. We don't like to travel. We don't like to be stretched. We don't like to visit new places. No, I think geography is it's no longer, it should no longer be a slave to your progress. If it is, that's your fault. It's not anybody else's but yours. But yeah, we're creatures of habit. And I think maybe because I was able to start traveling the world at 19, I was able to see that there was a thing called the world. And that really opened my eyes. So when my daughters became of age, they started traveling. And so they can see there's a thing called the world. We just don't, as Black folks, we don't always get that opportunity. And, when we do, hopefully it's passed on to, your siblings and passed on to your kids. But yeah, we have to get out of the mindset of our world is 2 or 3 square miles of where we grew up at. That was my world for the majority of my childhood until I got to 19, where I didn't go that far. I mean, out in LA, we had gang problems, right? So I had to stay in my neighborhood so I can be safe. But yeah, normally, yeah, we're creatures of habit. We don't like to travel.
I think it's also interesting that this emphasis on with the school, it being funded, right? So can you sort of speak to that and why it sounds like you were prioritizing that rather than having folks take out loans or finding some other ways to pay for their education?
Yeah, so I was broke. Like I couldn't afford to go to college. And that became a reason why a lot of us don't go to college, and or a reason why we drop out or we don't, we don't finish. And when I was at Nike, I started to understand sports and sports marketing, and how not just Nike, but other big corporations pay people to sit in high school gyms and bleachers looking for the next great athlete, right? And they position that athlete to get into the right high school, and they position that athlete to get into the right college with the idea of them becoming an employee or an endorsee, right? And I'm just like, why wouldn't organizations do the same thing with the people who create the product? If you're going in and looking at these kids and seeing them as a commodity and someone who can increase the revenue of your organization, they should be doing that with employees too, right? And so what all I did was took the athlete model and brought it into education. The corporation is the benefactor of the educated kid. So why wouldn't the corporation pay for what they want? Because they kind of do that already. They have design recruiters, they sponsor projects at schools. So they already have that idea of paying for what they want. I'm just trying to flip it around a little bit for them to look at how do they develop the next generation of their talent. And if they want to do that, there's a price for that. And if you do that with a solid return on investment, meaning you're producing quality talent that gets employment at these corporations, there's a solid ROI there that, that's corporations conversations, right? Everything they want to do is they need a return on investment. And so if you can produce a return on investment, you'll keep getting more investment. I mean, it's kind of simple. And so that's what we've always been focused on as an academy and now as a college, is what is the return on investment, and making sure that our kids are not just there to have a good time, but there to have a good time, learn more about themselves, and get a job.
Okay. Another question here. Being the only one in the room can lead to imposter syndrome. Has this ever played a role in your psyche? And if so, how do you consistently overcome it?
I never heard those words until maybe a couple of years ago. So it wasn't a part of my mental back then. Being, like I said, it was not easy being the only one in the room, but I looked at it as an opportunity to be the only one in the room. And so I didn't run away from that responsibility. I ran up to that responsibility. Some of that came from reading Jackie Robinson's story, and reading and understanding about what Jackie had to do. He wasn't the best athlete that could have played professional baseball first. He was the one that had the right mental and mindset to do it first. And so I knew, not comparing myself to Jackie, but just learning from Jackie, I knew that if I didn't do what I was supposed to do, it was going to set us back a little further. And so I've always had a different point of view on my positioning in corporate America.
Okay. And I guess, as we kind of, folks, it's sort of last call for questions here, but I'm going to throw one in here. What are you seeing as your, I guess, biggest challenge, let's say, over the next 5 years?
Biggest challenge is outreach. The biggest challenge is, how do I reach young Black minds to share what we have waiting for them in Detroit? That's the biggest challenge, because we, like I said earlier, we don't always look in the right places for good information. We spend more time consuming negative things and negative information on a daily basis. So being able to properly connect with the right organizations, the right social platforms, to get in front of these kids and meet them where they are, if we can do that, then we're going to get the talent that we need to develop and grow this industry so it can look a lot different than what it is now. But yeah, the biggest challenge is, how do we fight through all the negativity and the things that these kids see on an hourly basis to show them a path of what is possible for them.
Okay. Are there any other parting words you'd like to give us?
Well, one, I mean, I'm happy. Thank you, Amari, for, and Nigel for inviting me to the conference. Our design industries are very segregated. Graphic designers have their own conventions, product designers have their own conventions and shows, architects, engineers, everyone has like a separate thing, right? It'd be great for us to have more, inclusive conversations as creatives instead of being so segregated as creatives. In a lot of ways, industries prey on that. And also in a lot of ways, we lose when that happens as well, because you never know who you're going to meet. You never know what conversations could lead to opportunities, or you never know what conversations can lead to someone helping you and vice versa. So the more that we can have conferences like this and invite multiple design disciplines in, that's how we're going to start changing these numbers and diversity as it pertains to design.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time and your attention. We really appreciate this. And like I said, I think it's been very inspirational. I know I'm energized myself. So thank you very much. Looking
All right,
forward to
thank
seeing
you.
what comes.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing you in Detroit too.
Of course, of
Yeah.
course. Okay, now everyone, thank you so much. Day 2 is drawing to a close. Of course, we'll be back tomorrow for day 3. The lobby opens up at 11:45 a.m. Central, and programming will start at 12 noon Central. So have a great rest of your day. We will see you tomorrow. And if you want, you can stick around for some more music from DJ GQ, and I'm sure there may be some more folks in the chat. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you.
Mhm.